The human fleet arrived exactly when their calculations had predicted. 317 massive ships appeared at the edge of Vallani space, each one the size of a small city. They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing the light from nearby stars. Captain Kira stood on the bridge of the Stellar Harmony, watching the impossible sight on her viewing screen. The combined fleet of all the allied species, 120 ships representing the best military forces in the sector, looked tiny compared to the human armada. Captain, reported Tactical Officer Wren, the human flagship is requesting communication. Put them through, Kira said. Though her voice was barely steady, the main screen flickered and Admiral Park Dong-woo appeared. But he looked different now than during their first contact. He seemed older, more tired, but also more certain of himself. Captain Kira, he said calmly, you have assembled quite a fleet. We will defend ourselves, Kira replied, trying to sound brave. Defend? Park looked genuinely confused. Captain, I think you misunderstand our purpose here. We are not here to fight you. Then why are you here? We are here to complete you. Before Kira could ask what that meant, another voice joined the conversation. It belonged to Commander Oh Hyun-woo, and when he spoke, Kira felt ice in her veins. Captain Kira, your species has two choices. You can join us willingly or you can join us unwillingly. The end result will be the same, but the process will be very different. Join you? Kira asked. What does that mean? It means becoming part of something greater than yourselves. Oh explained. Your knowledge, your abilities, your biological uniqueness, all of it will be preserved and enhanced as part of our collective. On her tactical displays, Kira could see that the human ships were not preparing for battle. Instead, they were deploying strange devices that her sensors could not identify. What are those devices? She asked. Integration chambers, replied Dr. Yang Yunji, whose voice now joined the conversation. They allow for the peaceful transfer of consciousness from individual existence to collective existence. High Admiral Zeth's voice came through on the communication channel from his flagship. What you are describing is not integration. It is absorption. You want to destroy our individual minds and make us part of your collective. Not destroy, Yang corrected. Transform. Your individual consciousness will become part of a larger consciousness. You will still be you, but you will also be part of us. To demonstrate what they meant, the humans transmitted images from one of their ships. On the screen, Kira saw beings that had once been other species. Zephyrians, Trilaxians, Mordakians, and dozens of others she did not recognize. But they were not prisoners or slaves. They moved freely through the human ship, working alongside humans, their eyes bright with purpose. They look happy, Dex whispered beside Kira. They are happy. Oh confirmed. They have been freed from the loneliness of individual existence. They are part of something magnificent. One of the transformed beings, a creature that had once been Zephyrian, spoke directly to the camera. I was once like you, it said. I fought against the humans. I thought they were our enemies. But they showed me the truth. Individual existence is small and limited. Collective existence is infinite. Kira stared at the being on her screen. It spoke with conviction, with genuine belief. There was no sign of coercion or control. The creature truly seemed to believe that becoming part of the human collective was better than its previous life. You see, Park said gently, we are not monsters. We are gardeners. The galaxy is full of individual sparks of consciousness, all burning alone in the dark. We bring them together into a single magnificent fire. But what about our cultures? Asked Counselor Mira, who had joined the communication from the Vallani homeworld. Our histories? Our individuality? All preserved, Yang assured her. Nothing is lost. Everything is enhanced. Your Vallani culture will become part of our collective culture. Your history will become part of our collective memory. Your individuality will contribute to our collective creativity. On the tactical displays, Kira could see that some of the Allied ships were wavering. The human offer was not what anyone had expected. Instead of demands for surrender or threats of destruction, they were offering completion. High Admiral Zeth made the decision that Kira had been dreading. All ships prepare for battle. We will not submit to absorption. The first Vallani ship fired its weapons at the nearest human vessel. The energy beams struck the human ship's hull and simply vanished, absorbed by the same adaptive materials that had resisted their scanning attempts. In response, the human ship fired a single weapon. The Volani ship did not explode. Instead, it simply stopped existing as if it had never been there at all. "Please do not make this difficult," Park said sadly. "We do not enjoy causing fear or pain. But the process will happen whether you cooperate or not." More Allied ships opened fire. The results were the same every time. The human ships absorbed the energy attacks without damage, then responded with weapons that unmade their targets at the atomic level. Within minutes, half of the Allied fleet was gone. "Stop," Kira called out. "Stop the attack!" The firing ceased. The remaining Allied ships floated in space, their crews staring at the empty areas where their companions had been just moments before. "The beings on those ships?" Kira asked. "Are they dead?" "No," O replied. "Death is wasteful. They have been integrated directly into our collective. Their consciousness was preserved and transferred at the moment their ships were dissolved." To prove this, the humans transmitted another image. On their screens, the Volani crew saw their former comrades, the ones whose ships had just been destroyed, standing calmly in human integration chambers. They looked confused but unharmed. "Captain Tor?" Kira called out, recognizing one of her fellow officers. The transformed captain looked directly at the camera and smiled. "Kira, it is wonderful here. I can feel the thoughts and memories of thousands of beings. I am no longer alone. Tor, you were never alone. You had your crew, your friends, your family." "I thought I knew what connection meant," Tor replied. "But this is so much more. I can feel the entire collective, Kira. Every thought, every memory, every emotion. We are all one mind, but we are still ourselves within that mind." Kira looked around her bridge. Her crew was staring at the images, and she could see the confusion and growing curiosity in their eyes. "Captain," Thex said quietly, "they do not look like prisoners." "Because they are not prisoners," Yang explained. "They are part of us now, free to contribute their unique perspectives to our collective understanding." Science Officer Thex stepped forward. "What would happen to my scientific research if I joined you?" "It would become part of our collective knowledge," Yang replied. "Your discoveries would be available to every member of the collective, and you would have access to the scientific knowledge of thousands of other researchers from hundreds of different species." Kira watched in horror as more and more of her crew began to look interested in the human offer. The promise of connection, of being part of something larger than themselves, was appealing to many of them. "This is not a choice," she said desperately. "This is the end of everything we are." "No," Park replied gently. "This is the beginning of everything you can become." On the tactical display, Kira could see that the remaining Allied ships were no longer maintaining formation. Some were trying to retreat. Others were simply floating in space, their crews paralyzed by the impossible choice they faced. Dr. Yang transmitted one final image. It showed the interior of a human ship where thousands of beings from dozens of different species worked together in perfect harmony. They were building something magnificent, a device that Kira could not identify but that was clearly far beyond the technology of any individual species. "Together, we are building wonders that no single species could imagine," Yang said. "We are creating art that transcends individual understanding. We are solving problems that have puzzled the galaxy for millions of years. We are becoming something greater than the sum of our parts." Kira realized that she was facing a choice that no captain in history had ever faced. She could fight and watch her people be absorbed anyway. She could flee and spend the rest of her life running from an enemy that grew stronger with every civilization it consumed. Or she could choose to join something that promised to preserve everything they were, while making them part of something infinitely larger. "Captain," Thex said softly, "maybe they are right. Maybe this is evolution, not extinction." Kira looked at her crew, at the images of their transformed comrades, at the magnificent technology the collective had created. For the first time since this had all begun, she wondered if the humans were not monsters after all. Maybe they were gardeners, as they claimed. Maybe individual existence really was just a small spark in the darkness, waiting to become part of a greater fire. "What guarantee do we have?" she asked finally. "That we will still be ourselves." "You have our promise," Park replied. "And you have the evidence of your own eyes. Every being you have seen who joined us is still recognizably themselves, but enhanced by connection to something greater." Captain Kira closed her eyes and made the choice that would define the future of her species. We accept integration." The emergency session of the Volani High Command had been running for 12 hours straight. High Admiral Zeth paced back and forth in front of the massive display screen that showed Captain Kira's scanning data from the human ship. "This cannot be real," said Counselor Mira, her forearms gesturing at the impossible readings. "No species could develop such technology." "The data does not lie," replied Chief Science Advisor Dex. "I have analyzed every bit of information 3 times. The humans have created weapons that can destroy matter at the atomic level." High Admiral Zeth stopped pacing and faced the Council. "The question is not whether we believe this data. The question is what we do about it." On the screen, the technical analysis of the human ship showed details that made even experienced military officers uncomfortable. The biological components harvested from extinct species, the contained stellar collapse that powered impossible weapons, the navigation records showing the locations of 47 consumed civilizations. "We must warn the other species in this sector," said Counselor Mira. "The Drakmarians, the Helix Collective, the Spiral Confederation. They need to know what is coming." "I have already sent warning transmissions," Zeth replied. "The responses have been mixed." The truth was that most of the species they had contacted refused to believe the warnings. The idea of a civilization that consumed other species entirely was too horrific for many to accept. Some thought the Volani were trying to start a panic. Others believed it was some kind of political trick. "What about the species that do believe us?" asked Dex. "They are evacuating," Zeth said grimly. "The Tenthari abandoned their 3 outer colonies yesterday. The Morphic Assembly is pulling back all their deep space exploration ships. The Christek Union has begun moving their population centers away from the expected human advance." Counselor Mira looked at the star charts showing the projected path of the human fleet. "How many beings are we talking about evacuating?" "In this sector alone? Nearly 2 billion sentient beings across 14 different species." The number hung in the air like a weight. 2 billion people fleeing their homes because of the approach of a single human fleet. "High Admiral," asked Dex, "what about the species that refuse to evacuate?" Zeth's expression grew darker. "The Helix Collective has declared that they will fight. They believe their defensive technology can stop the humans. Based on what we learned from Captain Kira's scan, their defensive technology will not even slow the humans down," Mira said. "I know, but they will not listen." Meanwhile, on the edges of Volani space, strange ships had begun to appear. They were smaller than the Indomitable, but they carried the same disturbing energy signatures. These were the human scout ships, and they were not hiding their presence. Captain Bay Insu commanded one of these advanced scouts. His ship, the Silent Reaper, moved quietly through space, cataloging everything it encountered. But this was not normal exploration. The humans were not mapping star systems or looking for resources. They were studying the local species, learning their biology, their technology, their weaknesses. Every inhabited world the scout ships found was carefully examined. The humans recorded the genetic structure of the local species, analyzed their military capabilities, and studied their social structures. All of this information was being prepared for the main fleet that would arrive in just a few days. "Command," Bay transmitted back to the human fleet. "We have completed biological surveys of 14 species in this sector. All data packages are being transmitted now." The response came quickly. "Understood, Captain Bay. Begin strategic weakening of primary targets." Acknowledged. The human scout ships began the next phase of their mission. Instead of direct attacks, they started subtle sabotage operations. Space stations lost power. Communication networks experienced mysterious failures. Military bases found their computer systems infected with viruses that could not be removed. Dr. Shin Ji-woo, aboard the human command ship, reviewed the incoming data about the local species. Her job was to plan the most efficient consumption of each civilization. Some species would be harvested primarily for their biological uniqueness. Others would be valuable for their technology. A few had psychological or cultural traits that could be useful. The Volani appear to have the most advanced scanning technology in this sector, she noted in her report. Recommend priority consumption to acquire their sensor capabilities. The Drakmarian military has interesting energy weapon designs. Suggest partial preservation of their weapons specialists for integration into our engineering core. The Helix Collective shows strong resistance to mental influence. Their neural patterns could be useful for improving our biological computer systems. Each species was being evaluated not as a civilization to be conquered, but as a collection of useful parts to be harvested. Back on the Volani homeworld, the population was in panic. News of the approaching human fleet had spread despite government attempts to keep it quiet. Cities that had known peace for thousands of years were now preparing for evacuation. The humans will be here in 4 days, Zeth announced to the emergency council session. Our long-range sensors have confirmed the approach of their main fleet. How many ships? Asked Mira. 317 vessels. Each one appears to be the size of a city. The council chamber fell silent. The largest Volani fleet ever assembled contained only 43 ships, and those were much smaller than what the humans were bringing. What about the other species? Dex asked. Are any of them willing to form an alliance to fight the humans? The Spiral Confederation has agreed to join us, Zeth replied. So have the Tenthari and the Morphic Assembly. Together we can field approximately 120 ships, against more than 300 human vessels. Yes, Commander Oh Hyun-woo, aboard the human fleet's flagship, was reviewing the intelligence reports from the scout ships. The local species were reacting exactly as predicted. Some were fleeing, which would make them easier to track and capture. Others were preparing to fight, which would allow the humans to test their new weapons on real targets. The Volani have discovered our capabilities, reported Captain Yu Jae-sung. They have shared this information with other species in the sector. Good, Oh replied. Fear makes the harvest more efficient. Panicked species make mistakes. Dr. Yang Yunji joined the conversation from her laboratory. I have finished analyzing the biological data from the scout ships. I recommend beginning with the Tenthari. Their regenerative abilities would be very useful for our ship systems. What about the Volani? Asked Oh, save them for last. Their knowledge of other species will be valuable during the consumption of the remaining civilizations. The human fleet continued its advance toward the populated systems. Behind them, they left empty space where colonies and outposts had simply vanished. Ahead of them, billions of beings prepared for the worst battle of their lives. On the Stellar Harmony, Captain Kira received regular updates about the approaching disaster. The human fleet was now only 3 days away, and none of the desperate plans being developed by the allied species seemed likely to work. Captain, Thex reported, we are receiving transmissions from the human advance scouts. They are not encrypted. What do they say? They appear to be technical discussions about harvesting procedures. They are talking about us as if we were crops to be gathered. Kira closed her eyes. In 72 hours, the largest military force ever assembled in this part of the galaxy would arrive in their space. And based on everything they had learned, it would not be enough. The humans were not coming to conquer. They were coming to consume. And once they arrived, every living being in the sector would become part of their ever-growing collective. The only question left was whether anyone would survive long enough to warn the rest of the galaxy about what was coming for them next. The deep scanning beam finally broke through the last layer of the human ship's defenses. What Science Officer Thex saw on his screens made him step backward in shock. Captain, he whispered, you need to see this. Captain Kira moved quickly to Thex's station. The readings on his screen showed the inner structure of the human vessel, and it was like nothing she had ever seen before. These weapon systems, Thex said, pointing at the display, they do not just destroy things, they unmake them. What do you mean, unmake them? Kira asked. They attack the forces that hold atoms together. When these weapons fire, they do not just blow things up. They make things stop existing. Sensor specialist Vex was working at another station, her face growing pale as she studied different readings. Captain, there is something worse. Some of their weapons create holes in space itself. Holes in space? Temporary black holes. They can make gravity wells that crush entire ships into nothing. Vex looked up from her screen, her eyes wide with fear. Captain, this single ship could destroy entire fleets. But Kira was looking at something else on the scanning display. The biological components they had detected earlier were becoming clearer now, and what she saw made her feel sick. Thex, focus the scan on Section 12 of their ship, the organic areas. Thex adjusted the controls. The image became sharper and details began to appear. What they saw was beyond anything they had imagined. Those biological components, Kira said slowly, they are not just living tissue. They are made from other species. The scanning data showed clearly that large parts of the human ship were grown from biological material taken from different alien races. But these were not just samples or specimens. The aliens had been changed, altered. forced to become part of the ship itself. "Captain," Vex said, her voice shaking, "I am detecting consciousness patterns in some of these biological components." "Consciousness? You mean they are still alive?" "Yes. The beings that were used to create these ship parts are still aware, still thinking, but they cannot move or speak. They have been turned into living machines." Kira felt horror washing over her. What kind of species does this to other living beings? Tactical Officer Wren, who had been silent until now, spoke up from his station. "Captain, I have been analyzing their weapons and defense systems. This ship is not designed for exploration or even normal warfare. It is designed for one thing: completely destroying other civilizations." "Show me," Kira ordered. Wren put his findings on the main screen. "Their weapons are not meant to capture territory or defeat armies. They are meant to eliminate all life from entire planets. But that is not the worst part." "What is the worst part?" "After they destroy a civilization, they harvest it. They take the biological material from the dead species and use it to improve their own ships and weapons." The scanning data confirmed Wren's analysis. The human ship contained biological material from dozens of different species, all of it integrated into the ship's systems. It was like a museum of extinct civilizations, except the exhibits were still alive and being used as tools. "Captain," Thex said urgently, "I am detecting data files in their computer system. The scan has accessed some of their records." "What do the records say?" Thex was quiet for a moment as he read through the data. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "They call it the Great Consumption." "The Great Consumption?" "It is their plan for the entire galaxy. They are not exploring space like we do. They are consuming it. Every species they encounter becomes raw material for their expansion." The data files showed the truth about humanity's expansion into space. They did not build colonies like other species. Instead, they found inhabited worlds, studied the local species, then attacked without warning. After the attack, they harvested everything useful from the defeated civilization: their technology, their biological uniqueness, even their memories and knowledge. According to these records, Thex continued, they have already consumed 47 different species in the past 50 years. 47 species? Kira could barely speak. Entire species? "Oh yes, Captain." "Complete extinction. But they do not just kill them. They absorb them. Every species they destroy makes them stronger." Vex had accessed another part of the human database. "Captain, there are tactical assessments here. They study each species before they attack, learning their weaknesses, their fears, their strengths. Then they design specific weapons and strategies to harvest them as efficiently as possible." The records showed detailed analysis of dozens of species that no longer existed. The humans had studied their biology, their psychology, their technology, and their culture. Then they had designed perfect methods to destroy each one and harvest what remained. "Look at this," Wren said, pointing to his screen. "They have records of the Zephyrian battle they mentioned earlier." The data showed the recent fight between the human ship and the Zephyrian fleet. But it had not been a battle, it had been a harvest. The humans had allowed the Zephyrians to attack, then used weapons that turned the Zephyrian ships against each other. In the end, every Zephyrian vessel had been consumed, its crew absorbed into the human ship's biological systems. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, Kira said, and these humans destroyed them easily. "Not destroyed," Thex corrected. "Consumed. The Zephyrian fleet is now part of the ship." Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the lab. Vex looked at her instruments in panic. "Captain, the humans know we have accessed their database. They are trying to cut off our scanning beam." But it was too late. The final piece of information came through just as the humans blocked their access. It was a navigation file showing the movements of a massive human fleet. "Captain," Wren said, his voice filled with dread, "this ship is not alone." The navigation data showed hundreds of human vessels moving through space in a coordinated pattern. Each ship was like the Indomitable, a mobile extinction machine designed to consume entire civilizations. "Where are they heading?" Kira asked. Wren calculated the coordinates. "This sector, Captain. They are coming here. How long do we have?" 6 solar cycles. Maybe 7. The full horror of the situation became clear. The humans were not just another species expanding into space. They were a galactic plague, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger with each civilization they destroyed. "Captain," Thex said quietly, There is one more thing. According to their records, this ship, the Indomitable, is not even a warship. What do you mean? It is classified as a scout vessel. The real warships are much larger and much more dangerous. The communication system crackled to life. Admiral Park's voice filled the lab, but now it sounded different. There was no anger in it, no emotion at all. Just cold certainty. You have seen our records, he said. You know what we are. You know what we do. Why? Kira asked. Why do you do this to other species? Because we can, Park replied simply. Because the galaxy is vast and full of useful material. Because other species are inefficient and wasteful. Because it is our nature. We could coexist, Kira said desperately. We could share the galaxy peacefully. Park laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You still do not understand. We are not interested in coexistence. We are interested in completion. Completion? The galaxy has room for only one form of intelligence, us. Everything else is just raw material waiting to be processed. The communication ended. On their screens, the Volani crew watched as the human ship's power levels increased dramatically. Weapons that could unmake matter itself powered up to full charge. Captain Kira looked around her lab at her crew. They were all staring at her, waiting for orders. But what orders could she give? How do you fight an enemy that consumes entire civilizations? How do you warn the galaxy about a threat that turns its victims into part of itself? Vex, she said finally. Prepare a priority transmission to Volani High Command. Classification, extinction protocol. Yes, Captain. Vex, copy all the scanning data. Everything we learned about their technology, their methods, their fleet movements. Send it with the transmission. Captain, Wren said quietly. What are we going to do? Kira looked at the image of the human ship on her screen. Soon hundreds more like it would arrive in this sector. When they did, every living being in dozens of star systems would face the same choice. Be consumed quickly, or be absorbed slowly into the human collective. We are going to run, she said. And we are going to warn everyone we can. And then we are going to pray that someone, somewhere, can find a way to stop them. But even as she said it, Kira knew the truth. The humans had been consuming civilizations for decades, growing stronger with each victory. They had technology that could unmake atoms and create black holes. They had turned their victims into living components of their ships. How do you stop something that has already consumed 47 different species and shows no sign of slowing down? The answer, Kira feared, was that you do not stop it. You only delay it. 2 hours had passed since the strange conversation with the humans. Captain Kira stood in the science lab of the Stellar Harmony, watching as Science Officer Thex prepared the most advanced scanning equipment the Volani had ever built. Are you certain about this, Captain? Thex asked as he calibrated the sensors. The humans seemed very clear that they did not want us to get too close. Kira watched the human ship through the lab's viewing port. It still floated silently in space, dark and mysterious. We have scanned thousands of ships from hundreds of species, Thex. This is what we do. We explore and learn. Sensor specialist Vex joined them at the control panel. She was younger than most of the crew, with bright silver skin that almost glowed under the lab lights. Captain, I have never seen hull materials like these before. Our long-range sensors cannot even identify what they are made of. That is exactly why we need to scan them, Kira replied. Think of what we could learn. New materials, new technology, perhaps even new ways of thinking about space travel. Thex nodded slowly. The scan will take approximately 30 minutes to complete. Our sensors are designed to penetrate any known shielding technology. Begin the scan, Kira ordered. The scanning array came to life with a soft humming sound. On the main screen, waves of energy began moving toward the human ship. At first, everything seemed normal. The energy waves reached the ship and began to probe its outer hull. Then something strange happened. Captain, Vex said, her voice confused. The hull is resisting our scan. Resisting how? Kira asked. It is not just deflecting our sensors. It seems to be learning from them. Each time we probe a section, that section becomes harder to scan. Thex checked his instruments. She is right, Captain. The hull materials are adapting to our scanning frequency. I have never seen anything like this. Kira felt that same uncomfortable feeling she had experienced during their conversation with the humans. Can you penetrate it? I think so, but I will need to increase the power, Thex said. Much more power. Do it. The scanning array's humming grew louder as more energy flowed through it. On the screen, the energy waves became brighter and more intense. Slowly, they began to push through the outer hull of the human ship. "We are getting through the first layer," Vex reported. "But Captain, there are many layers. This ship is not just armored, it is built like what?" Kira asked. "Like a living thing with multiple skins." As the scan went deeper, more strange readings appeared on their screens. The ship's structure was unlike anything in the Volani database. Where most ships had simple hulls and internal spaces, this vessel seemed to have a complex network of interconnected systems that grew and changed as they watched. "Captain," Vex said, his voice tense, "I am reading the ship's power source now." "This is impossible. What do you mean?" "The power core is not generating energy. It is containing it. The readings suggest they have captured some kind of stellar collapse event and are using it to power their ship." Kira stared at the readings. "Stellar collapse? You mean like when a star dies?" "Yes, but much smaller. It is as if they have taken the death of a star and trapped it inside their ship." Vex's hands shook as he worked the controls. "Captain, the amount of energy contained in that core could destroy entire planets." Before Kira could respond, Vex called out in alarm. "Captain, I am detecting organic signatures throughout the ship." "Organic? You mean the crew?" "No, Captain. The ship itself. Parts of it are alive." The scanning display showed strange, pulsing areas throughout the human vessel. These areas seemed to be growing, changing, adapting to their environment. It was as if the ship was part machine and part living creature. "This cannot be right," Kira said. "Ships are built, not grown." "The readings are clear, Captain," Vex replied. "Large sections of this ship are biological. They appear to be some kind of hybrid technology that combines mechanical and living components." Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the lab. The scanning equipment was overheating from the effort required to penetrate the human ship's defenses. "Captain," Vex warned, "the scan is putting too much strain on our systems. We should stop." "No," Kira said firmly. "We are learning too much. Continue the scan." As they pushed deeper into the ship, more disturbing readings appeared. The biological components were not just random growths. They seemed to be organized, controlled, purposeful. It was as if someone had taken living tissue and forced it to serve as part of a machine. "Captain," Vex whispered, "some of these biological signatures are not human." "What do you mean?" "I am detecting DNA patterns from multiple species. Some I recognize from our database, others I do not." Vex looked up from her screen, her face pale. "Captain, it is as if they have taken parts from other living beings and made them into ship components." The lab fell silent except for the humming of the overstressed scanning equipment. Kira stared at the readings, trying to understand what they were seeing. Suddenly, the human ship's communication system activated. "Volani vessel, cease your scanning immediately." It was Admiral Park's voice, but now it sounded cold and dangerous. "Admiral," Kira replied, "we are simply trying to understand your technology. We mean no harm. I said cease your scanning. This is your only warning." "We are almost finished," Kira said. "Just a few more minutes." No. The communication ended. On their screens, the Volani crew watched as the human ship's power levels began to rise. Weapon systems that had been dormant suddenly came online. The ship that had seemed damaged and helpless was now bristling with energy. "Captain," Vex said urgently. "They are charging weapons." "Big weapons? How big?" Kira asked. "According to these readings, they could destroy our ship with a single shot." Kira looked at the data streaming across their screens. In just 30 minutes of scanning, they had learned that the humans possessed technology far beyond anything the Volani had ever encountered. Contained stellar collapse for power, living ship components made from multiple species, adaptive hull materials that learned and evolved. "Captain," Vex said quietly, "there is something else. The scan has detected navigation data." "What kind of navigation data?" "Jump coordinates. Lots of them. And Captain, some of these coordinates match the locations of colonies that have gone missing in the past few years." Kira felt ice in her veins. "Missing colonies?" "Yes, the Zathari colony in the Rigel system, the Tralaxian settlement near Vega, the Mordakian outpost at Wolf 359. All of them went silent, and search teams found no trace of what happened to them." "And this ship has navigation data for all those locations?" "Yes, Captain, and many more." Before anyone could say anything else, Admiral Park's voice came through the speakers again. This time his tone was different. Not angry, but somehow worse. He sounded amused. I see you have found our navigation logs, he said. Curious people, you Villani, always wanting to learn more. Admiral, what happened to those colonies? Kira asked. They served their purpose, Park replied simply. What purpose? There was a pause. When Park spoke again, his voice was quiet and calm. You should have stopped scanning when I asked you to, Captain Kira. Now you know too much. Too much about what? About what we are. About what we do. About what we are going to do. The human ship's weapons powered up to full charge. On the Villani screens, energy readings spiked to levels that should have been impossible. Admiral, we are peaceful explorers, Kira said desperately. We only want to understand. Oh, you will understand, Park said. Very soon you will understand everything. As Kira stared at the readings from their scan, she began to realize that they had not discovered a new species of peaceful space travelers. They had found something else entirely. Something that had been moving through the galaxy, visiting colonies and leaving nothing behind. The question was, what did the humans want with all those missing colonies? And what were they planning to do next? The answers to those questions were about to terrify the Villani, more than anything they had ever encountered in 3,000 years of space exploration. The vast emptiness of space stretched in all directions as the Villani ship Stellar Harmony moved through the dark void. Captain Kira stood on the bridge, her forearms crossed behind her back as she watched the stars through the large viewing window. Her silver-blue skin caught the light from the control panels, and her large black eyes reflected the distant suns. Captain, called Science Officer Thex from his station, we are detecting something strange ahead. Kira turned toward him, her movements graceful despite her size. The Villani were tall beings, much taller than most species they had met in their 3,000 years of space travel. What kind of strange, Thex? A ship, unknown design. It appears to be damaged. Thex's fingers moved quickly over his controls. The materials are unlike anything in our database. Kira walked to the center of the bridge. Around her, other Villani crew members worked quietly at their stations. The bridge was peaceful, with soft blue lights and curved walls that made everything feel calm. This was how the Villani liked things, peaceful and orderly. Show me, Kira said. The main screen flickered to life. In the darkness of space, a strange ship floated silently. It was not like any Villani ship. Where Villani ships were smooth and curved like flowing water, this ship was rough and angular. It looked like it had been built for war, not exploration. The design is very aggressive, noted Tactical Officer Wren. Look at those weapon ports along the hull. Kira studied the image. The ship was dark gray, almost black, with thick armor plating covering every surface. Strange symbols were carved into the hull, but they meant nothing to the Villani computers. Are there life signs? Kira asked. Yes, Captain. Approximately 200 beings aboard. Their biology is unknown to us. Thex paused, checking his readings again. Captain, there is something else. The ship's power signature is very strange. It is running on minimal power, but the readings suggest it has access to much more energy than it is using. Kira thought for a moment. In all their years of space travel, the Villani had met many species. Most were peaceful like themselves. A few were aggressive, but even those could be reasoned with. This ship, however, felt different. Open a communication channel, she ordered. Channel open. Captain, replied Communications Officer Vel Unknown Vessel. This is Captain Kira of the Villani ship Stellar Harmony. We mean you no harm. Do you require assistance? For several minutes there was only silence. Then suddenly, the alien ship's power levels increased dramatically. Lights came on along its hull and weapon systems activated. Captain, they are charging weapons, Wren reported. His voice tense. A harsh voice crackled through the speakers, speaking in broken galactic standard. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. We are armed and ready to defend ourselves, Kira was surprised. Most species, when first meeting the Villani, were curious rather than hostile. The Villani were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful explorers and traders. We are the Villani. We explore space in peace. Your ship appears damaged. We offer help. There was another long pause. Then a different voice came through the communication system. This one was calmer but still suspicious. I am Captain Lee Sujin of the Earthship Indomitable. We do not know your people. Stay back. Earth? Thex whispered. That planet is not in any of our star charts. Kira raised one of her hands for silence. Captain Sujin, we have not heard of your people before. This is very exciting for us. We would like to learn about each other. We have been in battle, Sujin replied. Our ship is damaged, but we are still dangerous. Do not come closer. Kira looked around her bridge. Her crew was watching her carefully. In 3,000 years of space travel, the Villani had never met a species that led with threats rather than curiosity. What happened in your battle? Kira asked. We fought the Zephyrians. They tried to take our colony world. We stopped them. Thex quickly searched the Villani database. Captain, the Zephyrians are a warrior species from the Andral sector. They are known for their aggressive expansion, but according to our records, they have never been defeated in battle. Kira felt a chill run through her body. The Zephyrians were one of the most feared species in known space. Their technology was advanced. Their ships were powerful and their warriors were ruthless. If these humans had defeated them, what kind of beings were they? Captain Sujin, you say you defeated the Zephyrians? Yes, they will not bother our colony again. The simple way the human said this made Kira nervous. There was no pride in the voice, no excitement. It was like talking about fixing a broken machine. How many Zephyrian ships attacked you? Kira asked. 12 battlecruisers and 40 smaller ships. Thex's eyes went wide. A Zephyrian battlecruiser could destroy a Villani city ship with ease. 12 of them, plus support ships, should have been able to conquer an entire star system. How many ships did you have? Kira asked carefully. Just the Indomitable. Silence filled the Villani bridge. 1 ship against 52 Zephyrian vessels. And the humans had won. That is impressive, Kira said finally. It was necessary, Sujin replied. Now state your business or leave our space. Your space? Kira was confused. According to our maps, this area is unclaimed. It is human space now. We are expanding. Another voice came through the communication system. This one was deeper, older. Captain Sujin, allow me. The new voice addressed the Villani ship. I am Admiral Park Dongwu. We appreciate your offer of help, but we do not need it. We suggest you return to your own territory. Admiral, we are explorers. We would very much like to learn about your people. Perhaps we could meet in person? That would not be wise, Park said. Our species are very different. What is safe for us might not be safe for you. Kira thought this was strange. The Villani had met hundreds of different species. They had developed ways to meet safely with all of them. We have experience with many different biologies, she said. We can adapt. No, Park said firmly. You cannot adapt to us. Trust me on this. Something in the Admiral's voice made Kira very uncomfortable. It was not just refusal. It sounded like a warning. Very well, she said, but we would still like to learn more about you. Perhaps we could share information about our cultures. Perhaps, Park said. But first we need to repair our ship. We will contact you when we are ready. The communication ended abruptly. The human ship's power levels dropped back to minimal and it became dark and silent again. Captain, Thex said quietly. Should we scan their ship? We could learn much about their technology. Kira stared at the alien vessel on her screen. Something about it made her nervous, but she could not say what. In all her years of command, she had never met a species that seemed so closed off. Prepare a scanning array, she decided. But be careful. Something about these humans troubles me. As the Villani ship prepared to scan the mysterious human vessel, none of them knew that they were about to discover something that would change their understanding of the galaxy forever.